Hello, it's me, Harley, back at it again for yet another video. And today I'll be addressing an issue I've been promising to address for quite a while. And that is, what the hell is going on with my health? Well, there are several reasons I am in and out of hospital like it's going out of fashion. Some of them more severe than others. Some of them more severe than others. In total, I have 3 health conditions going on at the moment. 1, I've got a fractured shoulder, and that is going to take a while to heal. 2, there's a second minor health issue going on that isn't that big of a deal, but my doctors are being a pain in the ass with it, so yeah, I won't be addressing that one today because honestly it's boring and it's such a small, insignificant thing that honestly I don't see a reason why I would do a video on it. 3, the blooming big, major, why I am in hospital all the time issue. It is my personal opinion that I wouldn't have a fractured and dislocated shoulder if it wasn't for the fact that I have this health condition. And what is that health condition, you may ask? Forgive me if I pronounce it wrong because I'm not entirely certain how to pronounce it, but it is called something along the lines of postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. Sorry, I know I will have pronounced that incorrectly. I'm certain that I'll get people at some point going, it's actually pronounced like this. I'm not good at it. Most people call it PoTS for short, or big P, small o, big T, big S. I am having a really rough time with this. So I'm now going to try and say it in a really easy way that everyone can understand. Most people, when they go from sitting down to standing up, has a small increase in heart rate to get the blood circulation going round in your body normally and make sure you don't pass out from standing up. With me, my heart goes overtime. I end up getting such an increase of heart rate that it causes me dizziness, confusion, fainting sometimes, all sorts of lovely symptoms that everybody just wants in their life. No, they don't. No, they don't. It's no fun at all. So for most people, sitting down to standing up is not an issue. It's just something that you do in everyday life. For me, I have to be extra careful. If I don't maintain a certain diet, I don't have enough water, if I don't get enough sleep, all sorts of different factors, if one of these things is slightly off and I stand up a little bit too fast, that's me collapsed and passed out on the floor. Shall I tell you about some of the lovely symptoms I have been experiencing for months on end and it's not going to stop anytime soon? Basically, PoTS drastically affects the autonomic nervous system. Again, sorry about pronunciations. That controls all of these things. Your heart rate and blood pressure, your digestion, your bladder control, sweating, and your stress responses. Woo! Yay! I've explained to you how that affects standing up, but as you can see, it also affects a lot of other things as well. The biggest problems I find are the dizziness and lightheadedness. I can get really dizzy really fast out of nowhere. I'll be just walking along and suddenly it'll hit me like a brick and I'll be like, oh my god, this is horrible. It gets to the point where you're so dizzy and so out of it, you feel really deeply sick. Personally for me, this is what I experience before I end up landing on the floor. To start with, I get numbness and kind of tingling in my fingers. Apparently that's a normal sign for this because it affects all your joints and the way you retain water as well, so woohoo! That's the first sign that, be careful because in a minute you won't be with us. You'll be out on cloud cuckoo land, mate, so warning sign number 1. The next thing I notice, dizziness and lightheadedness. If I can't sort it out quickly, I start to slur my words and sentences. my speech goes all over the place. In fact, I'll be editing the video so you can't tell just how bad it is. There is a lot of editing in my videos because I find it really hard to form sentences. That's something that's never happened to me. Tell 5-year-old me that one day in the future I would find it hard to have a normal conversation with somebody and I would have laughed in your face. Another funny thing I find with my speech is sometimes my sentences end up in the wrong order. I could be wanting to say to somebody, "Hello, how are you today?" And what I'll come out with is, "Today, how are you, hello?" I'm like, what the hell does that mean? Then I faint. If I'm standing up, that means I'll just go straight to the ground. If I'm sitting down, most of the time it'll look like I've just gone to sleep. This has caused so many problems. One time I had an ambulance called from my school because I was walking from the assembly hall to the main school building and I passed out randomly, hit my head on the floor and gave myself severe concussion. I have very little memory of what actually happened. All I can remember is feeling quite sick and nauseous and all these symptoms while I was in the assembly. I can't actually remember walking towards the main school hall, but that's where I would have been going and that is where I was going. And the next thing I kind of remember is just feeling really out of it. I had a couple of my teachers with me. My mum had just turned up and I was on my way to the hospital. I'm also pretty certain my shoulder was dislocated and fractured because of this. I was on my Gold Duke of Edinburgh expedition. I was climbing a stile and all of a sudden I can remember just feeling really dizzy and losing my balance and starting to tip backwards. That's when I reached out, grabbed the wall and essentially did the injury. That's how I broke my shoulder. I am literally breaking myself and getting myself concussed because of this health condition I have. Thankfully, I don't faint as much as I used to now because I'm learning how to cope with it and I'll go into that shortly. Other problems that this PoTS syndrome can cause is heart palpitation. So you feel your heart rate going really, really fast. Again, that's something else that you kind of feel a little bit. I become slightly aware of it before I pass out. Personally for me, I don't feel it so much. I know it's happening because I've had tests done, which I might do another video about, because there's this thing called a table tipping test, which essentially provokes the symptoms so you can see how bad it is and the doctors can diagnose you as having PoTS. I don't personally feel it so much. I don't feel the heart palpitations, but they are there. They do happen. Headaches. Now then, recently I've been put onto a type of medication for something else. As I said, the minor health issue, which isn't a big deal. And I found that recently, in the last couple of months since I've been taking this medication, my headaches have gone down drastically. Before then, I used to get chronic migraines to the point where I could be in a pitch black room with no light whatsoever, in complete silence, lying down, and I wouldn't be able to move. When I get these migraines, I get them with aura, which means I end up seeing things as well, like blotches of light or dark spots, and it's so fun. Just before I pass out sometimes, and with these migraines, I end up hallucinating little black cats. It's weird. Like, it's never fully detailed. In fact, it's not always cats. Most of the time, it'll be a small black cat kind of outline shape that I see kind of like darting in the corner of my eyes, and I'll be like, oh, is my cat later there? Sometimes it'll be like spiders. I might see the occasional couple of spiders jotting around, and rarely, this has only happened a couple of times, but I have hallucinated and seen what looks to be like the black outline of a shadow of a person. The shadow that I see is like a 2D man, like standing next to me, and I'll just be like, oh my god, is there a man there? And there won't be, obviously, because it's a hallucination. One thing that I cannot cope with at all is how tired and weak PoTS makes you feel. It is horrible. It's so exhausting. I went into town with my mum a few days ago because I was going to get myself a new Cards Against Humanity box. We were in town for about 2 hours. During that time, quite a bit of it was me sitting down, having something to eat and drink with my mum. The rest of the time was walking very short distances at a slow and leisurely pace. You don't go running around a shopping centre like Naruto and going at super fast paces, do you? This caused me to be completely out of it. By the time I got back to the car, I was exhausted, and for a very short amount of time, I did pass out in the passenger seat. That shouldn't happen. I had literally done nothing else that day, and that exhausted me. It doesn't help that one of the things that you are meant to do to help you get better with your PoTS is get a good night's rest. That's impossible for me because I have chronic insomnia. Last night I had a total of 2 hours sleep. The nights before, I didn't have any. The night before that, again, I didn't have any. So in the last 3 nights, I have had a total of 2 hours sleep. Honestly, that's just everyday life for me. The vast majority of the time, I have about 2 to 3 hours sleep a night. I know it's not healthy, and there are so many people go, have you tried this? Have you tried this? What do you think I've been doing these last 10 years? I have been trying to rectify that since I've been about 10, 11. I have tried every bizarre remedy you can have. I have tried all the normal stuff as well. There isn't a technique I haven't tried to get to sleep, but it just doesn't work for me. Another thing that PoTS gives you is shakiness. You have spent more energy just doing the simple stuff than a normal person does. And because of that, you tire much quicker, which means you become shaky. The world doesn't go to your needs. You still have to work the same amount of time as everybody else, even though it takes you 3 times more energy to do it. And often you'll be visibly shaking. Like, it's not controllable. You are so exhausted at this point, you're just like, and I'm feeling a little bit of it now. This is another symptom that sometimes comes with a dizziness before you flat out. Personally, I don't get this, but some people experience chest pain. I experience the shortness of breath and not being able to breathe properly and finding it hard to control your breathing, but I don't get the chest pain. I'm not really certain about this. I don't think I sweat more than other people. But then, at the same time, I do know that I retain a lot of water. I may not be sweating it out, but my skin and my body gets so swollen from the amount of water it's holding in that I have been known to have my skin crack and bleed because it's under so much strain and pressure from this water retention. I don't think I get the sweating, but I think I should. That ain't normal. Gut problems. I do get some of these. I do get the ridiculous bloating. I've been telling you about how my body retains the water and swells. Well, it's not just that. My stomach also gets so bloated to the point I might be mistaken for somebody who's pregnant. As I said, this syndrome affects basically everything you do, even how you digest things. People with PoTS syndrome often have chronic insomnia. It usually goes hand in hand. I've also had a lot of these symptoms for years, which makes me think either this year's been an especially bad year for me, or my symptoms are getting worse, hence why I now have a diagnosis. However, I personally think, and my doctors pretty much agree, that I've probably had PoTS for years and just never known it. Visual problems. I kind of went into this a bit earlier, but when I'm about to faint, sometimes I do hallucinate things. This can also blur your vision a bit, which again, I've noticed. Sometimes when my PoTS is bad and it's giving me warning signs. And finally, bladder problems. I don't think I have this problem. Again, with the chest pains, This is just something I don't experience personally. I'm quite lucky in that respect. So what triggers my PoTS? The biggest trigger I find is heat. At the moment it is August and it is hot. And I'm in England, which means it's not an especially hot country. Yes, it's pretty warm, and yes, I could easily get sunburnt if I went outside today. But at the same time, it's not Egypt. Soon I'll be going to Egypt, and that'll be ridiculous. So my mum and dad are taking me to a desert literally at the height of summer. I don't know how I'm going to cope with this, but it should be fun. I've told you how my skin swells up, but it also causes me great pain in my joints as well, to the point where walking is difficult. Eating. Eating is another trigger for PoTS. With me, if I stand up after eating and it's not been a good half hour, I will get my dizziness, feeling sick and all that jazz. Speed of postural change. That means how fast you're standing up. I've already gone into this, so I won't go into it again. Dehydration. Oh my word. I drink so much water because of this. It's one of the few things I can do to try and control my syndrome. Most people will drink about 3 or 4 litres of water per day in height of summer. That's usually more than enough for most people to feel comfortable and happy with. At the moment, I am drinking between 5 and 6 litres a day, and that's keeping me just about okay, at least when it comes to hydration. When I'm in Egypt, it wouldn't surprise me if I end up going to 8 litres of water a day. The time of the day. I am not joking you. I have always thought myself as a night owl. There might be a good reason for that, because apparently the worst time of the day for someone with PoTS is morning to midday. So I've been told that essentially 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock is my worst time. That's when it's hottest, and that's when my PoTS will be most active. That's not the only time. It's also pretty active during the morning, because if I do actually manage to get some sleep and I wake up, it takes quite a while for my body to adjust to that. I'm basically becoming a vampire at this point, like, ugh. This one doesn't affect me at all because I don't drink, but apparently alcohol is another trigger for PoTS syndrome, which makes sense, seeing as alcohol is well known for causing dizziness and visual problems, which is something that I deal with every day just normally. And finally, which it's just, ooh, so good, exercise in general. Any form of exercise is a trigger for my PoTS syndrome. Now, this really gets to me. I like to do stuff. I like to exercise. I have a horse. When I'm physically able to do so, I love to ride him. At the moment, I basically can't do any form of exercise because I have a fractured shoulder from my flipping PoTS syndrome, which caused me to faint in the first place. So, woo, yay! And the worst thing about all this is there's not really much you can do about it. I've been given some lifestyle changes and advice to try and control it a bit better, and that has helped to a certain extent. I don't faint anywhere near as much as I used to. However, I still find it very, very hard to do the most basic of things. Things that I've had to do as a lifestyle change to try and stop it is increasing the amount of salt I eat, increasing the amount of water I drink. Before standing up, sometimes I'll have to do like wrist and hand exercises and foot exercises to get circulation and my blood flow going before I stand up so I don't faint. Compression clothing is something I am looking into and I'm trying out. Keeping myself cool is a big plus point. And finally, just keeping yourself clean and maintaining personal hygiene, as silly as it sounds, can make yourself much better. With my PoTS syndrome, it does kind of increase my chances of getting ill. If your systems aren't fully functioning and they're down in the first place, it's just going to make illnesses easier for you to catch, because you don't want to have PoTS and a cold. Finally, I'll end on a couple of other illnesses which are highly associated with PoTS. So that doesn't necessarily mean everybody with PoTS will have these illnesses, but usually it's quite common for them to come in hand. It's also been suggested that I might have a mild version of joint hypermobility syndrome, which basically means it's very easy for me to dislocate myself. This is something that I've probably had since childhood again. I used to be a gymnast and an acrobat, and I was pretty good at that because I was naturally double jointed. That's something you'll see a lot with hypermobility. It's all to do with your joints and how you move and stuff. It also causes a lot of pain in your joints, which I feel especially during the summer. It can cause a lot of back pain. Like sometimes I'm in so much pain with my spine and back, it can make standing up difficult. Basically just standing up is a big no-no for me. Hypermobility joints also can cause clumsiness and dizziness. In fact, I'm so clumsy that at one point when I was a child, social services got in contact with my parents because they thought I was being beaten because of how many times I went into hospital. That's simply because I was good at breaking myself. Another health condition that I definitely have is low blood pressure. That is another health condition that's very closely linked to PoTS. My blood pressure is so low, I wish I was joking. I wish so much I was joking about this. At hospitals, this has genuinely happened. I wish it was a joke. I've had blood pressure, heart machines and things tell me I'm dead while I'm physically conscious and awake staring at them because my blood pressure is so low the machine thinks I've died. That is no joke. I wish I could say that. It has not just been like on one faulty machine. I've had it happen a good 4 or 5 times in the last 2 years where I've been in the hospital and they've been checking my blood pressure and the machine has gone off with an alarm saying that I'm dead. I have really low blood pressure. Chronic fatigue syndrome, again, that's complete and utter exhaustion. I've already mentioned, I have that. Mast cell activation disorder, something I don't have, but it basically means that you're allergic to a lot of things. I don't have this. In fact, I have no known allergies. So, at least that's one good thing about me. I may be really very ill, but I can pretty much take any type of medicine. Autoimmune conditions. Again, something I don't have, but another illness which is very closely related. Finally, there are other ones which have less of a correlation, but they are quite often seen together. These are diabetes, cancer, multiple sclerosis, and Lyme disease. To my knowledge, I don't have any of those, so at least that's good. Because of my PoTS syndrome, I am in and out of hospital all the time. So I am so sorry if I miss an upload occasionally. I don't like doing that. I really wanted to upload on Saturday, but at that point I'd had no sleep for 2 days. I was really ill and I tried to do some filming. I just wasn't making any sense. In fact, throughout this video I found it really hard talking normally. Even you guys will notice that I am not entirely in the right place. I'm not doing this video for sympathy or anything like that. I don't want sympathy. But I just wanted you guys to know why I'm in the hospital all the time. On that note, I'll say toodle pip old beans. I'll see you next time. Bye.